Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an anime story podcast. I'm the Big Bad Moon. I'm one of your hosts. An anime story podcast. There we go. I'm the Big Bad Moon. I'm one of your hosts. Right over here on the right is Hallen 3D. She's one of your other hosts, and just below me is Bad Strategy. He's your other host. This is an anime story podcast. We're going to talk about anime and whatnot. Today we're going to be talking about Toward the Terra. A number of different aspects of Toward the Terra. I'm going to go ahead and do some sound checking real quick. How's your day going?
It's going really good. Just enjoying my Saturday. Oh, and I started trapeze this week. So that was fun.
Trapeze?
Yeah.
She hangs upside down.
With the slightest of ease.
It's low flying trapeze.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Bad.
I love it.
You don't do that, do you? Do you, Bad?
Less so.
Less so with the trapeze. That's fair. Nobody's perfect, you know.
Bad should do the bat hang.
Bad, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Are you ready for your having your mind blown?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was told this was going to happen. What? Go ahead, blow my mind. What's up?
So me and Moon watched the new version, not realizing that there was an old version that is dramatically better than the new version.
I watched the old version, not realizing there was a new version.
Old version.
You got the
Tony, the character Tony. Jomi is his father.
Yes. Yeah. They land on the planet and they decide to make a kid with Karina?
Karina, it's the same mother, but Jomi's the father.
Jomi and Karina have a child because they want to have the first baby that isn't born into a test tube in over 100 years. And they actually birthed Tony. And after the planet's obliterated, that's when Tony shuts himself into a quarters for 10 years and doesn't come out. He can no longer speak. He's mute, he's deaf, and he finally comes out once his heart feels a little more healed and takes over. But Tony's, in the meantime, in that 10 years, destroying humankind.
Okay, wait. What do I do?
He doesn't refer to him as grandfather. He refers to him as
Romy.
As Jomi. As dad.
In the old one?
Yeah.
In the old one, yeah.
Yeah, in the new one he calls him grandpa. That's weird.
Yeah, in the new one he's like grandfather, and everyone's like, you have a grandfather complex. It's like in the old version it's just like
why that change?
He just calls him Jomi.
I know, right?
That's a weird one.
Why take away some of the only character development for Jomi?
Yeah, no, seriously. He needed a little bit of that.
He needed. I mean, his character changed a bit, but we didn't really build to the changes.
Well, with respect to interesting aspects.
When Karina died, she died because Keith took away Tony and was running off with him after stabbing him in the shoulder. And she went into a rage that killed her.
So the same thing basically happened, right?
Okay.
I don't know how the animation looked in the old version. In the new version, in the 2007 version, I think it is. What happened is Keith throws the thing. It stabs baby Tony in the heart, very clearly in the heart. Baby Tony falls over, right? Keith walks up to him. Physis is there. She's like, "Oh my god, you killed him." And he says, "No, he may be cold as ice. His heart's not beating, but he's clearly still alive." Why would you know? How would you know that?
Yeah, that was a big leap. Yeah.
So he stabs him. I wasn't sure if it was in the heart. They didn't explain that. They didn't. Yeah. I didn't feel like they needed to. And so they didn't explain that. And then he runs away with him, and Karina just feels what happened to him, and then she starts freaking out. She's like, huh! And you see this, and you can feel that she feels that he is hurting, and you don't know if he's dead or not. but then she just starts getting really emotional and like everything starts catching fire. And Jomi goes in and grabs her out of the fire, and she still passes away. But they're able to retrieve Tony.
So
And
it
then
sounds like there was better visual storytelling in the old version. In the 2007 version that me and Jake watched, that me and Moon watched, visual storytelling was not very good. It was not very clear and effective.
Real quick, before we get into the visual storytelling, so I feel like we might have to do maybe do this two ways. Hallen, Towards the Terra. What's that about?
Towards the Terra is about how we destroyed Earth and had to go to the stars. And this you're not really sure if it's organic or not, but this computerized system is there to make sure that humankind lives in a certain way. And the Mu are created out of that from the failsafe in the background. So the Mu are actually humankind as well, and are also being created in these test tubes. But they're also considered the enemy, so they want to sterilize them at all costs.
Right, and they're now. So I wonder if this is any different in the older one. The Mu are like psychic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's good.
They are.
That's a pretty big plot point. If they had changed that, I'd be like, wow, didn't even know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's fair. I can understand that from like EarthGov's position of like, oh yeah, these people are all psychic and really powerful. Yeah, I want to kill them all. I don't want them to get any power.
But the Mu in your story, did they all have weaknesses?
Do you mean inner character weaknesses?
No.
They're physically weak. Is
oh,
description.
Yeah.
That's fair. I don't really think that came up very much.
Like they mentioned it a few times.
Did it?
It wasn't an important story element, but
yeah,
it was
I didn't really notice.
That was an important story element in this, was that Jomi was the first one that didn't have the weaknesses they all carried.
Oh, that explains it. So they had a line. There was a line in the show when they were like, when Soldier Blue was talking to Jomi, and he was like, you are the combination of a human body and a Mu soul, and it's like, what are you even talking about?
That's like
it must have been. Yeah, it must have been.
That's a horrible way to say that.
Yeah,
it was a real the writing was not great, and the like atrocious voice acting did not complement the writing. It exaggerated how bad it was, because the voice acting sounded, it was, you know when computers read words, right, and they don't put the words together as if the words are in a sentence and are not isolated on their own. It was kind of like that all the time.
Except the computer's a lot more emotive than the actors.
Yes, the computer is a bit more emotive when it reads text.
It was really bad. It was really bad. So just to clarify for everybody, Hallen watched the old school one, the old school version of this, which is the 1980s production, Towards the Terra, and Bad and I watched the 2007 a dub of the 2007 TV series that was Towards the Terra, a remake, and this is all based on a manga from the 70s, I believe, the late 70s. I think probably the sentiment with Bad and I is that the new one is bad, or less than good.
The execution is in every way terrible. The core concepts kind of hidden in the background behind that are fun.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think
sci-fi.
Retro sci-fi is great. I like how a lot of the spaceships are shaped like rockets. That's great. I enjoyed a number of aspects. Bad, you were talking about one of the things you enjoyed was the idea of a psychic civilization trying to communicate with another civilization.
So there's a thing that happens in the second arc of the show, is the Mu civilization try to communicate with the humans, but they do so using telepathy from a great distance.
Right.
And the effect is that they are like destroying the minds of the people they're communicating with.
Okay, that didn't happen, but okay.
And that is
The
sort
old
of
one.
a it's sort of a retro sci-fi concept, right? Is that the psychic people are like, we come in peace, we wish to live happily with you, and all the people are like bleeding out of their eyes and screaming because the psychic waves are killing them.
So that specifically,
that's not quite how it happened in the show. In the show, it was them. They all reverted to being like children.
Yeah,
which
but severely damaged their minds. Although I think that
completely warped this show.
Oh yeah, it was so.
No, this is so warped. Like I get like where they went on all these tangents, but that they lost the story.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I thought it was.
They do. They talk to him telepathy-wise, and they're trying to reach out to him, and it is painful for them, but it's not killing them. And Keith, do you know who was Keith?
Anion.
Keith Anion.
He is Keith Anion.
He is He was genetically engineered. I don't know if I'd call him an android.
He's not an android. He's genetically engineered.
They call him that in the show.
Keith Anion. They do call him a robot. Yeah.
Well, they say you're basically like an android since you were.
Yeah. They say that in the show. They don't say android. They say robot.
They call him a robot and a machine, and you kind of. I feel like for a while the idea is that people are saying that because he acts that way.
Yeah,
but they don't actually mean that he's a machine.
Well, no.
And then later on, we find out that he is a
but he's not
artificial
affected
person
by any of the telepathy type things because he has no memories of a childhood because the only childhood he had was with the computer.
Yeah, that's the same thing that happened in this version.
Yeah. So Keith Anion.
I'm trying to
Keith Anion.
David Gardner. But the 2007 version, it was there's a lot of good concepts in there. It's a lot of retro sci-fi concepts that were really good. Psychic civilizations,
retro sci-fi.
How can you not, right?
Also, how often do we get to see the Mew in a narrative, in a modern, in like any the Mew, the Mew are a fun retro sci-fi thing that comes up from time to time, and every time I'm like, the Mew.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is a fun. It is a fun group, and it's nobody.
That's true. Okay.
Nobody really does that anymore.
Also, how much more retro do you get than having society ruled by a supercomputer referred to as mother?
Oh yeah.
And grandmother.
And grandmother.
And grandmother.
Grandmother's the yeah.
Grandmother is the head of Earth.
Yeah.
So, so I think that.
So I think I understand with the reverting back to children, because in our story, he was restoring their memories of childhood.
Right. Yeah.
So it was.
So maybe there's something.
So it was like so their memories from they didn't remember their. Anything like they remember their child, like the memories they had as adults.
It was kind of
it like flipped.
Over.
Yeah, it was kind of glossed over.
Okay.
The way that I understood it is that they didn't have any of their memories of being adults, but they now only have their memories of being children, and they were like degrading
and then
mentally.
No, that didn't.
Yeah, and then they between like scene transitions, all got purged in the background by Mother, and
Yes.
Wow.
And that was sort of glossed over.
It was a little bit glossed over.
Also, here's a question. This is a story that takes place over a very large period of time.
Yes.
There are a lot of time jumps. Are the time jumps clear in the old version? Because in the new version, in the 2007 version, like, we don't know how long time skips.
Yeah.
Like, I think it skips 10 years.
It straight up tells you. They're like 2 years later, 3 years later.
We needed this.
Later.
Yeah.
I was complaining so much because I was like, I think we jumped 10 years, but I'm not sure.
No, they told you. They straight up told you.
Yeah, no,
we needed that.
Because here's I have a question. How old was Tony at the end of the show?
Oh my gosh, he had to have been 30s.
In his 30s, Tony?
At least.
Because I thought he was like.
No, not Tony. Sorry. So no, Tony goes through a metamorphosis when his mother dies and becomes an adult.
So wait, Tony had a brother?
No, metamorphosis. He becomes an adult.
Oh, when his mother dies.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I thought you said brother, and I was gonna be like, oh my god.
Sorry.
No, so how old was Tony at the end of the show?
My assumption is, why did the computer? Okay, sorry. My assumption is that he's somewhere between maybe 20.
Because at the end of the show,
They didn't tell us.
at the end of the show when we were watching it, my interpretation of it was that he was like still 3 years old.
Yeah, is it like?
Well,
And that he was like a super metamorphosized baby, but really he was like 3 years old.
Yeah, it was really hard to
so
tell.
he looked like he was about 5 or 6, and I think you could do the math in the old one because it actually tells you.
Right.
When they got bombarded by the bombs and everything,
Mhm.
so he was like maybe 5 or 6, maybe he was 8, somewhere in that general area. But then when he metamorphosized, he became an adult,
Right.
and so it like was that quick. And then 10 years passes after that.
Okay.
So
So
after he metamorphosized.
That's definitely, yeah. It felt like
The
it was like 6 months between the time he turned into adult to the time the thing ended.
The time jumps were not made clear at all.
Yeah.
They were like they didn't put any text on screen. If they just put a little bit of text there, it'd be like 10 years later on the planet whatever, or Tamisha.
Mm-hmm.
It would be clear.
So I think that this is the thing that Ben and I were talking about was how we really do like the idea of a story. Now, the whole on our side of the new one, the way they conveyed how much time had passed was awful because we didn't have any idea how much time there had passed. But we do both love the idea of a story, a science fiction story, especially that takes place over many different generations.
Yes,
That's fascinating.
I love the idea of a character being a child, and we watch them develop and grow old and grow into an adult and have kids, and the kids grow up, and we see how their relationships and their developments and their exchanges and everything affect each other. Like, that is so interesting as a narrative.
No, absolutely. That is fascinating.
Oh, interesting. So I guess in the manga, he's referred to as Grandpa because he allows everybody to get married and have children who's in the colony. And so even though Tony doesn't call him Grandpa, he's actually Tony's father. In the colony, he's referred to as Grandpa because he allows people to get married and have natural
Right.
birth.
Well, that does that. I think that changes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it changes the nature of Tony's relationship with him so much.
Yeah,
Like that.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
like-
that's
Not in the movie.
really
Yeah.
meaningful.
Well. So.
Also, here's a question. Okay, Physis,
Yes.
fortune teller lady.
Yep.
Does she use tarot cards in the old version?
In the beginning, she does, yes.
In the beginning, okay.
Yeah,
And she can see the future. She has precognitive abilities.
she does.
And she is a clone engineered by one of the mother computers.
And she's Keith's mother.
What?
What?
She's Keith's mother.
Wait.
Genetically.
So
She
in
donated what? Yeah, she donated her ovum.
Oh.
So in the 2007 version, Keith Anion mentions at one point, he kind of suggests that she was a failed experiment,
Right. Yeah.
and that her being a failure, like the stuff that was learned from that, resulted in him coming about, right?
Yeah.
It was
felt.
kind of
It's her egg. It's her son. That's why she lets him live.
Good God. They just took a cleaver to the story and just
Yeah.
chopped away
Just
at it.
chopped it up.
Whacked away.
Put it back. Yep. Interesting. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And they don't reveal that until like the very end, and you're like, what?
Oh my God.
What is the end? How does the show end? How does it end in the old version?
The show ends with Jomi. He comes back and is like, if we keep going down this route, we're just gonna kill each other. And so he goes and he faces Keith and the mother computer, and he uses his telepathy to destroy the mother computer. And in the last dying breath of the mother computer, she tells Keith to shoot him. and he shoots him, and then he's like, I'm no longer under your control, and he grabs Jomi, and he holds on to Jomi, and it's like, this gotta stop, and he like leaves with him.
And do they survive?
Yeah. I don't know if Jomi does. They don't explain if he survives or not, but Jomi carries him out and is against the computer finally.
In the 2007 version, they kill off all of the characters who were
Everybody.
old. Everyone who was there at the
Fucking-
beginning dies off at the
Johnny's
end.
still alive. They're all still alive. The backup computer comes into place, who's like a male voice, and he is like, we made the Mew as a backup to make sure that humankind and the computer didn't take over each other. And so the mother
That's
computer
not.
finally dies.
But that's not the reason the Mew existed in the 2007 version. In the 2007 version, the Mew are an aberrant mutation that happened that
No, they purposefully made the Mew.
it just like,
It just keeps going.
God, think how horrific this would be if you were the one who created
Oh my
the
God.
original narrative.
Seriously, if you were the one that wrote it and you saw the 2007
would
version,
be
I'd be like, what are you doing?
Oh my God,
What?
my life's work.
Yeah, I know, seriously. Yeah,
Well,
wow.
when I saw the trailer, that's kind of how I felt. I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this. Looks like they're like changing everything. You have to have some homage to where it came from.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like that in the trailer.
They have the same names. So there's that.
Well, and it
Yeah.
sounds like they
Onion.
spun off on random tangents about the story.
Yeah. Okay. So honestly, the thing about the story, about the 2007 Toward the Terra TV show, is that it's just, aside from, I think, one of the big glaring things for us, which was the dub and how horrible the dub is, I don't think I've ever heard a worse just acting thing in general, even in parody.
That's
It's just really, really bad. Every character, no, actually, I think there was a character early on. I think it was the computer that sounded like a little bit more natural.
Yeah, the computer sounded more natural than anyone else.
Yeah, but everybody else literally is they. It sounds like you just grabbed some guy off the street, and it was like, "Here's a line. Read this word for word, nice and slow."
You would have to get better results if you did that, though. Surely someone you grabbed.
Would kind of try a little better. Yeah, no, they got everybody just awful, just really bad, flat, sounded like a robot. And it's one of those things where, I don't know how they didn't make it, and someone along the line didn't go, "Hey, this sucks. Should we fix it?"
Sounded really good.
I believe that.
I have a question. So, I love retro sci-fi. Sci-fi is great. There's a thing that is done in like modern satirical, like kind of poking fun at retro sci-fi, that is to refer to everything as space something, right? If you get candy, it's space candy.
Oh yeah.
If there's a doctor, they're a space doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And in the show, multiple times they referred to things as being space something. Did they do that in the old version? They didn't measure their speed in space knots?
No.
Because that's literally, they did that in the 2007 version. It was hilarious.
There were several moments where they just threw space on the beginning of the word,
No,
and they're like,
not at all. They only talk about it in the very beginning, because before Blue dies, he said, "One day I hope to see space. Can you show me again?" And Sysis grabs his hand and shows him the stars and everything, because he was so tired of living in the caverns.
Right.
But that's the only thing.
So,
living in
caverns.
Can we revel in real quick in just how completely different the stories are? Because Blue definitely.
Did he die at the beginning? Early on?
Yeah, Blue died early on.
Not near, not like halfway to 3/4 away through.
No, like a fourth maybe.
He didn't end up in a space coma for most of the show.
He just died.
This is at the very beginning of the show. Blue comes down to the caverns, or I think I almost thought it was like a projection of himself, but saves Jomi
Jomi
from
Marcus Shin.
saves him.
Yeah,
and then when they get back to the ship, he then goes into a space coma.
He fights everyone off later on at the end of the arc, and then goes into
a space coma and is just incapacitated in a space coma for the next 50 years.
Jomi tries to run away. Jomi tries to head back to the colony because he wants them to know that the Mew aren't evil.
Right.
And so Blue goes to rescue him, and Blue says, "I don't have enough energy to bring you back." And so then Jomi has to get them back to the Mew colony. And so Jomi gets them back, and he gives him all of his memories, and then Blue passes away.
That's basically
so he gets all of his memories and all of his stuff. So.
That's roughly what happens, except in the 2007 version, instead of Blue giving Jomi all of his memories, he says, "You're the hope for the Mew, and go and lead them," and then doesn't give him all of his memories and relies on Jomi, who is a terrible character, to lead the Mew without having any memories or assistance.
I liked it. He was a very strong, motivated character in this one, and he ruled out of love. And that's why it was so disappointing, because he goes back when everybody's evacuating the planet. He goes back and is like, "No, I have to save them. I have to save them." And I don't even think he saves anybody, because they all get obliterated. So he barely even saves himself. And they're like, "Well, at least he made it back." And after that, his heart's broken, and he is locked up for 10 years and won't talk to anybody.
I kind of,
psychically.
Helen, I kind of want you to watch the new one and film it just so I can watch you scream at the television.
Reaction?
What is this? Yeah.
No.
No, but seriously, it's honestly, these are two different shows. With similar plots. That's.
I think there's similarities in that they were trying to write a similar show and then butchered the hell out of it.
Yeah, no, that I agree with. Yeah, it's bad. And
given the information you're giving me.
Well, and then
the trailer looked that way too.
Aside from the way it's written, the voice acting just makes it feel so much worse.
The voice acting enhances all of the bad writing. Because
voice acting really, the writing is bad, and it's boring.
So
and
the person who wrote the 2007 is.
You cut out.
You just cut out there, but it sounded like you were saying what a horrible person, and it was like bleeping you because your voice cut out.
Are you there now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was saying that you have to remember the person who wrote it in 2007 was taking all of these concepts and rewrote this crap.
Oh yeah, it's something else worth noting. The worst voice actor out of all of the characters, all the side characters, all the main characters, everyone in the 2007 version, the very worst voice actor voiced Jomi Marcus Shin.
He did.
Really?
The worst one.
It is time for us to eliminate them. Let us go forward and do this.
No.
Yeah, it's hard to...
That's terrible.
I am brave and trust and believe in you.
Maybe they did use a computer.
No! There were times during the show that I made the argument to Bat. I was like, maybe they actually used a computer to do this. Because it kind of sounds like it's a computer. And he was like, no, it's not a computer. It can't be. I was like, no, I almost think it is, though.
I'm wondering, based on what you guys are saying.
I don't think it is. But there were times when we were watching it that I was legitimately thinking it was a possibility that a computer was reading out the lines. That's how the voice acting sounded. I'm very sorry if any of those voice actors ever hear this.
I have a question.
But it was bad.
I have a question. In the old version, so something happens in the new version, they get to the planet and let's go to the planet and have babies. And during that conversation, there's a peculiar reaction, right? Where one of the characters is like, "Did you know that humans can have babies naturally?" And everyone else is like, "I didn't know where babies come from."
Yeah.
No,
do they do that in the old version?
No. Everybody knew where babies came from, but they thought it was ridiculous to have babies like that, because why would you put your body through that?
Thank you.
That's a very reasonable thing.
That is entirely reasonable. So my argument when
So
me and
everybody knew where they came from, but they had dis
and that's
stopped doing
reasonable.
that.
That is so reasonable. So
And
me and Moon were
Jomi was
watching
like,
it.
we should.
Me
Jomi's
and
like, let's try.
me and Moon were watching it, and I was arguing that like maybe they had been like genetically modified.
Right, yeah.
Because how do you get a population of humans that are genetically like normal and not changed in some way that do not at least accidentally know where babies come from?
No, they all knew in this one.
Yeah.
But in this one, the reason why Jomi and Karina want to have a baby is because they want to prove that they want to unite humankind and mutkind. They want to have an actual baby that's from a body. And they were like, and Tony is more human than the rest of you because he was born naturally. Was their kind of point.
Are the humans how do the humans regularly reproduce?
Test tube.
Okay.
Test tubes.
But they all know, like
Yeah,
they all know
right.
where babies.
Was Swinna Dawson, the reporter lady, was your character? The not reporter, journalist, like
Was there a
Swinna.
journalist? No, there was no journalist in it.
Did Keith Anion have a romantic interest at some point?
No.
So
Did
wait,
this character only
There were two people that
Jomi's
were around.
childhood friend? She was a girl.
Huh?
Jomi had two childhood friends. One was a guy, and the other was a girl. And the girl,
Sam. I don't know who the girl was.
Sam, and the girl ended up growing up and having a romantic relationship with Keith Anion, and then became like a journalist or something.
No.
Okay, because I was.
No, he rescues a Mew lady, and he makes her kind of his servant.
Wait, it's a lady?
Wait,
is this?
They don't
is it an
actually say
effeminate
if it's
guy?
a him or her.
That's fair.
Yeah, maybe.
So in the 2007 version, it's Matsuka.
Matsuka.
Had a female voice.
Is it Matsuka?
Maybe it was Matsuka. Let me look.
Because Keith Anion rescues an effeminate male character named Matsuka, who's a Mew.
Okay.
Or by rescues we mean he doesn't murder.
Right.
Yeah.
The Mew runs into his bedroom and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And she says, "You saved my life," because like Keith is like interested in the Mew. He's like, "Well, why?" He's like, "But you don't have any memories. You have memories of growing up as human, so." In a way, you're no use to me, but in a way, you are, because I'm curious as to why Mew keep happening.
So apparently, very different. How, like, they did some different stuff in this. Like in the 2007 version, Matsuka's there, and Keith Anion's like, "I'm a super soldier and can tell that you're a Mew. I'll kill you." And then Matsuka's like, "I'm weak and cowardly. I've been pretending to be weak and cowardly my whole life." And then he's like, "I'm not gonna kill you," and then he doesn't kill him. And then Matsuka follows him around in a very unhealthy relationship where Matsuka's like, "I love Keith Anion. Why does he abuse me?"
That's
he doesn't abuse him in the movie. He doesn't do that in the 1980s. He doesn't abuse him. He's actually quite kind. He makes him work. Huh?
Yeah.
He does punch him a couple times.
Oh yeah. Is he constantly calling him a monster?
No.
Is he constantly saying that he's gonna kill him at the end of everything?
No. Once he saves him, he's decided to save him. He doesn't threaten him at all after that. And actually, he flies down to the planet to rescue Keith.
Wow.
So, because he's like, I'm the only one who can.
No,
that happened. I was thinking the other way around.
Matsuka. So yeah, in the 2007 version, Matsuka's like super into Keith Anion and is like, And he's like, I'm gonna like follow Keith Anion around like a puppy, and Keith Anion's like, I'm gonna have you follow me around, and the entire time I'm going to berate you and tell you you're a monster, and then I'm just using you, and then I'm gonna kill you at the end of this, and it's all horrible. And Matsuka's always like, I believe you're something good.
I think
No.
the only good thing that Keith Anion says about Matsuka is that he makes good coffee. And actually, I don't even know if he says it. He says it. He just implies it.
No.
Yeah.
No, in this one, he just, like, he saves him, and then he kind of follows him around, but he's kind of, like, learning from him. So he learns how to use the fighter jets. He learns how to take control of things. And so
the
Keith
learning's
actually
abridged,
teaches him that. And Keith doesn't say anything nasty towards him after that. Like, the first time he's like, well, I'm just curious about you, Mew.
Right, yeah.
And then after that, he's like, well, it was almost like he took him under his wing, but didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
Did we like? I almost feel like we need to have a discussion about reusing old IPs.
What?
Like intellectual properties, taking an old intellectual property and reusing it.
Gotcha. I was thinking something else. Internet protocol.
Internet protocols. Yes, reusing old internet protocols.
True.
Okay.
Your internet IP address.
Yes, because like, okay, I think if you take the issue, right, the issue that we all have is that if someone takes an old IP and says, I'm going to make something using the old IP, they are implying, even if they don't explicitly state it, that the thing they're making is going to be like the original in some way, because they're reusing the IP.
Right.
So it is implied information that they really can't get out of implying very easily. Like, even if someone states it like this is going to be nothing like the original, it's going to be completely different, there's still going to be people who don't hear that message and who get it or who acquire it in some way without reading that information and then are disappointed because it's not like the original. So I think any taking of an old IP and putting it into a new creation,
you have to give some homage to the old one.
yeah, it's an issue because they imply it's going to be like the old thing and they can't get out of that.
Well,
And
I think
so
part of the problem is it sounds like they kind of Swiss cheesed it a little bit. Like
they
there's
did
so
Swiss
many,
cheese it a little.
like gaps everywhere
So
that don't connect.
So here's how I feel about this whole thing. The way that this has worked out is that I think you absolutely can take an existing IP, an old IP, and you can redo it or you can remake it and you can make it your own. You can change whatever you want, make it completely different, or you can make it exactly the same. You can make it successful. You can make it good, but the big thing is you have to do it. You just have to make it well. Like, for instance,
make it make sense.
Yeah. So like, I would put forth Alien and Aliens. Totally different genres. Alien is a horror movie. Aliens is an action movie. Same IP, same character, same stuff kind of thing going on. Totally different genres. And they made Aliens. Aliens is a really good movie. Alien is a really good movie. Very different. They both did very successful. Were very, very, very successful. You could take an IP. You just have to do it well. So like, if we had watched a version of Toward the Terra with a completely different plot, if they had done it well, if they'd have made a good movie or a good show, I'd be down with that. But they didn't. They took a bunch of, they kind of made the same plot and they changed a bunch of things. And I mean, if we're being honest about it, I think probably it comes down to just the general scene writing was so bad that it was hard to watch.
Yeah. I would also argue that I think that there is remastering. There's like fixing it up in shiny, like put some polish on, rub that in, like bang off the rust on the corner. There's remastering, and then there's reimagining. And reimagining is different. Reimagining is being like, I like the idea of this. I'm going to change it a whole bunch to make it into something I like more. And I don't think either of those are bad, but I think that there is a need for transparency in what is what is produced, because ultimately, if I want to reimagine something and change it, and I'm not transparent about that, then I am deceiving people because of the implicit message that the implicit message that this is going to be like the old thing. If I'm
Yeah.
saying if I'm not telling them that it's a reimagining, that it is somehow changed.
Yeah, no, that's
Go ahead,
fair.
Mandy. Go ahead.
I just want to say, like, if you are going to reimagine something like that, you need to make sure that everything you're doing makes sense in the world. And it sounds like
Well, you need to do that if you're writing it from scratch too.
Yeah, that's true.
well, yeah, but I mean, in general, I mean, even if you want it to be yours and nobody else's and make it your own, you need to make sure you fill those gaps. You may and it doesn't need to be with words, like you guys said. It can be with images. It can be storytelling through what's happening and not necessarily speaking it. And it sounds like from what you guys have said that they were missing some of those beats for sure.
Yeah, so a complaint that I had was if one of the mother computers is able to produce precognitive clones, why is it that they don't have a bunch of precognitive clones foreseeing the future and helping them fight the Mew?
They don't really answer that in ours either, but it looks like it's harder for them to make clones. But they have a set of elites that they call them elites that are running Earth. And so they're sent to Earth to basically make sure everything goes according to plan.
Right. So, and this might be one of the problems with the 2007 version is I feel like there were so many loose ends and so many like gaps in what the hell was going on in this story that I didn't understand, that I didn't know. Maybe they, in the back of their minds, they were like, well, this is, stuff from the old one, so we already know that, so we're not going to cover it here. So I think there was a lot of stuff in the 2007 version that I was like, why is this happening? Like, or what the hell's going on here? It did feel really empty, or it felt, there was just not enough information in a lot of places. Yeah. Why don't they have precognitive clones? Maybe that wasn't covered originally. But a lot of weird stuff. A lot of why don't they do this?
Were they able to use their telepathic powers to hack computers?
No.
Good, because people should set limits when they put psionic power.
Yeah,
the biggest issue with psionic...
So they could cause disturbances, but they didn't have any control over the computer.
Okay.
So, they could cause, a little bit of a rift, and they could protect themselves from, like a shield, but that was, the best that they could do.
So...
Yeah, this is another piece of, missing information, is, what is the psychic?
I love sci-fi. I love retro sci-fi, and I love psychic powers in sci-fi. Psychic powers don't make it into a lot of modern sci-fi, and the reason why is because psychic powers, I would argue, tend to go more towards being like magic. It tends,
I agree.
Depending on how psychic powers are defined, the Force in Star Wars could be psychic powers.
Yeah.
Right.
It's in the most common issue with magic in narratives is that magic doesn't get defined. If a character has magical powers, the powers don't get defined, and then it's hard to have tension in any moment because we don't know if their magical powers are great enough that they could just wish away the situation, or if their magical powers are so weak that they couldn't even change a single element of it because they haven't defined the powers. Psychic powers need to be defined, and we need limits on them. We need to put them in a little box and be like, this is what they can do, so that we can give weight to each moment, and so that the audience is aware, oh, he can easily resolve the situation but is choosing not to. Go ahead.
You reminded me in the very beginning when Jomi was getting his memories erased. The computer is erasing the memories telepathically. And Blue comes in telepathically and interrupts that. And says, no, you need to hold on to your memories. We're coming to get you.
Interesting.
So, so there's got to be some kind of a connection in that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that myself at the beginning. I was like, how is the machine doing this? Because it's not hooked up to him at all. It's doing it remotely.
Yes.
So it's
Like Wi-Fi?
Yeah, it's very important that psychic powers in magic systems in narratives get defined, I think, because
they do talk about how the test tube babies, how there is a variance in them that allows for Mew, and Keith keeps asking why, and the mother keeps saying, well, haven't you figured it out by now? And he's like, no, I haven't. She's like, well, you can ask grandmother, and grandmother won't tell her either. And it turns out it was all a failsafe, and it was built into their genome.
Yeah, it's so in the 2007 version, the explanation is we couldn't we decided that if the program in place to gently weed out the Mew doesn't succeed, then it means they're necessary for some reason for human evolution. It was really bad. We'll just shelve that. Anyways, psionic powers in sci-fi. You know what my favorite implementation of psionic powers is in sci-fi? When they do the government scaring the population by being like, is your baby a mind reader? Neighbors, right? Like government scare propaganda to make people afraid of the psychics, and then the government coming in and stealing all the psychic babies, right? And then having the evil government agents who are psychics who were trained from a long time and indoctrinated, and they're like the evil G-man, but they're psychic. And then the government has those people who read minds, because I think that's the best implementation I've seen.
Yeah, no, I think that psychics are definitely an underutilized science fiction concept nowadays, and I think it's probably for the same reason you're talking about. That I think it kind of tinges itself more towards being a fantasy element than it does being a science fiction element. I think sci-fi has kind of gone towards a more tangible place these days.
I think an important element is that telepathy and being able to read people's minds. If that is a power that the government controls, is the government having the power to invade people's privacy in a way that is more extreme than anything else they could present. It is the ultimate invasion of privacy, like I can enter your mind. So it works pretty well when it's the government having psychic operatives, having thought police.
But not in the same way.
I read the Gulag Archipelago lately, and it is the things the Soviet Union did. Perfect. Evil government. So horrifying.
It's pretty rough.
If they had... Yeah.
So, Manny, what was your favorite part of the old version? Because you seem to have... Because we talked a lot about how the new one has less than great. Let's talk about the old one. How'd you feel about it?
I highly enjoyed it. I loved all of the hand-drawn art. It was beautiful. In a way, it was a little bit choppy, but that's kind of to be expected. With the old style, it's kind of a little bit jumpy, but other than that, it still flowed very well. One of my favorite scenes was when he finally comes out of being in that, I don't know what to call it. He was behind this really intricate door, and he finally comes out and says, we can't do this, because Tony wants to kill everyone. He's like, let's watch it all burn. And finally, Sysis goes to the door and is like, please, we need you. Please don't let this happen. If this happens, we're all going to die, and that's just going to be it. And so that's when Jomi finally comes out and says that we can't do this. But he can't speak. He lost his speaking and everything because of the explosion.
So he just says it with his mind or whatever.
And Keith, when he faces Keith, he even apologizes. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't speak anymore, so I have to use telepathy. And Keith is like, well, I'm not sorry. And he's like, I'm not sorry for what I did. And he's like, I was following the orders I knew to be true. And so Jomi's like, okay, that's fine, whatever, but this is what I gotta do. And that's when he takes down the computer.
So, as far as the animation in the new one, it's all right. It was not bad. not great backgrounds. Near the end, where there were some kind of interesting backgrounds with Earth.
I think
overall, it was like all right. You know, the visual storytelling itself was not super good. The art style was, I mean, I thought it was very standard. It felt a little older than it was. It didn't feel like 2007. There were a few CGI things. That wasn't bad. Overall, it was fine. The art was fine. Sound design was pretty bad. The music, I don't know. I didn't really notice the music. I guess that's probably good. Bad. What did you think of the music in the new one?
I don't know. The music was in the background. It wasn't.
I thought the intro music was kind of irritating.
Yeah, the music. It was.
Really?
I generally don't notice music unless it is really jarringly off.
Or really good.
I did notice at one point there was a sound effect for things clinking together when a character was holding several bullets, which were not touching each other. And I was like, those aren't touching each other. There shouldn't be a sound effect here. And there was. But, you know, me noticing that is probably an indicator that they weren't keeping the story interesting enough to keep me distracted from noticing the small details that I shouldn't be paying attention to.
No, absolutely. How'd you say the music was in the old one?
I liked it a lot.
Did you?
It was very stereotypical 1970s, 1980s, like the drum beat, like at the very end, and then it goes into a ballad. And so you're
awesome.
like, oh yeah, okay.
That's good.
So, like, it was a little hokey for me just because I'm like, okay, yeah, a lot of did this back then. But at the same time, it was still very good.
It was, that's fair. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I don't know why. I was, a friend of mine was watching Baywatch like a month ago, and I still have the Baywatch song stuck in my head.
Oh my god!
I'm not gonna hum it because, God, but it's such a what a stupendously 80s sounding song. Like it is. That's what the 80s sounded like. Still won't go away. But yeah. Oh, some of those classic sounding music gets stuck in your head.
I just sent it to you guys.
Oh, did you?
It's totally 1980s.
That's great.
Well, so then, you haven't read the manga, have you? No, and we haven't either. So as a kind of wrapping up of this particular show, now Bad and I with the 2007 one, you with the 1980s one. Where do you think? Would you want to see more of it? Would you? Do you think it ended pretty well?
I think if you're into anime, especially if you grew up a little bit on older anime, you definitely like the 1980s version. I would give it probably a 7 or 8 out of 10, just because I feel like they could have heightened some elements, but I still think it was a very solid piece. So that's kind of how I would pitch it. I wouldn't necessarily pitch it to somebody who's new to anime.
Yeah, that's fair.
Especially if they're younger, they might be like, "Oh, this is old."
pitching retro sci-fi in any form to anybody is kind of hard,
God,
unless they like sci-fi.
I love retro sci-fi. It's the best.
I do too.
I like me some ray guns.
I think they did a very solid job on this one, at least in the 1980s. Now I don't want to watch the.
No, you don't. Speaking of bad final thoughts on the 2007 Towards the Terra.
I liked the concepts in it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I wish the writing and everything else stood up well enough that I could pitch it on more than being like, if you like sci-fi and old sci-fi and don't care about bad writing, visual storytelling, audio, dubbing, and just generally terrible execution, then watch it because it's got some fun concepts in it.
I think the way that I would pitch the 2007 one is if it seems like something interesting to you, like if you look at the 2007, like the trailer or the concept. Oh, did you?
I can't hear you guys.
Check.
No.
Well, I'm gonna keep talking, just so. But so I think the way.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd say the way to.
I don't still sound. I don't know why. Let me see if I have sound on my.
You know.
Totally my headphones. I don't know what the hell happened.
Oh, did you hit the mute button?
I lost all audio.
She probably hit the mute button. Anyways,
very possibly.
Honestly, if you're watching and you have watched the trailer for the 2007 version, or you read the concept and it sounds interesting, I would say don't watch the 2007 version. Go watch the 1980s movie. Probably is better, or maybe read the comic. The manga.
Manga
probably is a lot better. Got some interesting. You're back?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back. We're just saying, basically, if the 2007 version looks interesting to you, you should just go watch the 1980s one, because it'll be better. So, yeah, that sounds about right.
And you can find it on Crunchyroll, or you can find it on Amazon Prime. Yeah, so this is something
else that was weird. For whatever reason, Bad and I, the only version we came across in our internet searches was the 2007 one. And Helen, the only one that she could come across was the 1980s one. So I have no idea how that happened. Maybe it's a regional search result thing. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, that's I think our final thoughts on Towards the Terra. Let's talk about real quick what the next show that we're gonna watch is. Helen, Bad and I were thinking that because we did Towards the Terra this time, why don't you choose the show that we're having? Did you have an idea for the last time?
I do, but I don't know how you feel about it.
Oh, please.
It's called The Promised Neverland.
The Promised Neverland. Let's look at the Google machine. Tell us about The Promised Neverland.
So, I don't want to tell too much because it would give away a lot.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
So basically, it starts out in an orphanage where there's a bunch of children, and there's a mom who takes care of them. And when a kid gets adopted, she takes them to the main gate and adopts them out. But it gets a lot darker than that.
So, now that, I have the thing. I think that's good. It looks like there's a 12 episode series airing in 2019. So it's a very new one.
You mentioned this last time, and last podcast, only like 6 or 7 episodes were out for it.
Which, now the whole thing's out. Yeah. So is the season going to be just 12 episodes?
I hope not.
Okay, so there's 12. So like, is the season over though? Is my question?
The season's over. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I hope it's not just 12.
Oh God, that'd be so bad. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm super game for that. I don't want to start stuff when it's still got a bunch of episodes to get through. I think that sounds great. The Promised Neverland. Yep. Looks like it's so far. It's a January 2019 original air date. On the anime, it's 12 episodes long. It was a manga, 1 volume, and another manga that was 12 or 13 volumes in 2016. Oh, wow. Okay. So they look like they're making a more, maybe a sequel or part 2 or something manga series.
I think it'll give us a lot to play with this series, just because it's got a lot of different dimensions, and there are some flaws that I have with it, but there's also some really you're like, oh God, why you leave me like that?
I'm super into the thematic element of the show.
Yeah, no, it looks I'm liking the art.
And I'm also glad that all the episodes are out.
Yes.
Yay!
Well, that sounds great. I think that's gonna be fabulous. So it looks like this coming month, May the 4th, 5 p.m. on Saturday. Exactly, May the 4th, be with you. But 5 p.m. May the 4th on Saturday, at 5 o'clock p.m. we're gonna be doing I lost it. The Promised Neverland. And we'll be talking about that. Hopefully it's going to be better than our 2007 Towards the Terra. I think it will be. It's a pretty low bar. That's pretty much, you probably walk over it and not even notice.
When's My Hero coming back?
Oh, I have no idea, but it's going to be great when it is. It looks like... I have no idea. Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't. It's cool.
It's gonna be good. I can't wait. It looks like fall 2019 is what it says. Season 4 release date fall 2019.
And My Shield, or the Shield Hero, that one's a good one too.
Shield Hero. Well, we will definitely be looking into it. But thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening to us whinge about how bad the 2007 Tour the Terra was. But hopefully we'll see you next time, and we'll be doing something a little bit more interesting. So,
bye, guys.
Hey, thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.